On a misty day as the sun rises in France. It's going to be hot today, but it's autumn. And so the clouds and mist rise ochre from the mist, from the fields. I need to talk to you again of Hume. You might remember that Hume is the great philosopher that teaches you the difference between a life on computers and the real world. The real world, the world of perceptions, he says, has an utter glamour to it. As you actually perceive something, it excites a certain liveliness of mind, a vivacity that nothing else can excite, that you have no name for, and that is gone in the moment of the impression, but gives a glamour to the next impression, and the next, and the next, so that they burn themselves on your brain, as it were from without, with a set of impressions that cannot be fabricated, or not simply fabricated. The contiguous world, the world where one event follows another, and the world of space and time, exists in us. I better be warned, I might be jumped on by a large white dog. No, she's got other ideas. The contiguous world, then, the world of space and time, is it like a passive synthesis in our brain? We wake up and it's there, courtesy of such vivacities. He contrasts these then with resemblance. With resemblance, as I have an idea of green or an idea of dogs, that idea will encompass lots of other ideas. Hume mistrusts resemblance. He thinks it's the source of error, and he trusts contiguity, which he says must be true. All right. And this then is the difference between the real world and the computer world. The computer world can never reach the vivacious world. It rather must use the other great driver of connections in the brain, passions. Passions, I always used to say, were vectorial. They were always going somewhere, doing something, wanting you to do something, demanding that you did something, felt something. And they were, for Hume, always driven by resemblance. Fury is like anger and can very quickly turns to pride. You just need to move the mood music. Feelings are messy then, but they're not messy in the sense that they go off to other perceptions. They're messy in themselves. They're arbitrary for Hume. You learn to associate one emotion with one stimulation. We might argue about that. And they are able to fabricate, to a degree, reality. They are a bit like vivacity, but not the same. They don't have the same spontaneity, and they don't have the same rhythm. Ideas that are held together by passion, then, that is, coagulations of impressions, are for Hume very, very unstable. Nothing has made them except the passion that has driven them. That passion will create an idea that is fairly specific and very brittle. It must always excite the same emotion. And the further and further away it is from anything you ever experienced, the less and less stable it is likely to be. Ideas, then, of nation can be very brittle if they're not formed by something more than passion. Quick note, for me, this is a very nice little explanation for clickbait, just saying, because the internet is, of course, driven by fury. We're being invited to be angry. And it's that anger that makes impressions, makes the coagulation of ideas that are presented to us all the time on the internet feel real. It is the passion that gives them their reality. It's not about truth. It never was. Hume would laugh if you even thought that much. It's about the passion that animates the feelings. The passion that animates perception of impressions and makes them feel as if they could have once been perceptions, even if they never were or ever could be. But Hume goes further, and he explains to me one of the strangest of paradoxes. You see, being a bleeding heart lefty, I 25 years ago when the internet started and I first went online in 1997, I got all excited and thought, this is it. We're all going to be global citizens. We're all going to live in a world where we can communicate to each other. That's going to destroy so much. And here we are 25 years later and the rise of nationalism. And Hume in the back of my mind is laughing at me. And why? Because Hume says that the foundation of anything is likely to be your kith and kin. You see, ideas, that is a set of impressions, a bundle of random impressions held together by something like resemblance, and even animated by a passion, is very, very brittle. It doesn't really have a power to survive just because truth, that is vivacity, that is lively impression, is always likely to break into it and pull it elsewhere. It doesn't really have a contiguity of its own. In order then to hold on to itself, to hold on to its own, it needs to borrow from reality. And the easiest way to borrow from reality, the easiest place or thing to borrow, is your immediate world. If you want to ground then false ideas, big ideas, you have to somehow tie them in to the immediate impression of the everyday. And for me, this is the incredible great strength of the far right. They are very able to take impressions of everyday, emotions of everyday, emotions of anger and feeling of powerlessness, but also just the everyday life, and somehow suspend it, put it in peril. They inject it then with a level of fear, and that fear becomes all the more real as people think about their everyday lives and all the impressions of their everyday lives and think of them as something that can be lost. In effect, you get a negative nation, a nation that is held by fear, but the idea is being fed from the vivacity of the impressions. The reality of every day, the reality of my life, gives the reality to the bigger idea that would otherwise lack it. Or put it like this, ideas that are rooted only in fear are very unstable for Hume. But if that fear is fear of losing something, then the liveliness of the thing that you lose will inform that fear and stabilize it. So that means that if you are looking for ideas that work online on the internet, ideas that relate to your immediate world and somehow put it in jeopardy, that's a runner. I mean, this is, of course, ironic because Hume would say that the foundation of all morality is your kith and your kin. You can only learn about morality through learning to love those who are close to you. And that is absolutely right. The internet, of course, for me, being a lefty, changes who you are close to. It opens up that question, who is my neighbour? And makes it very powerful. I'll let that slide for the minute because that's a different sort of politics. But he allows you to understand why the internet and the kind of ideas that it creates, ideas that are bundles, loose confederations, are animated first by fear, because that gives them a reality, and then that fear works best if it is the fear of the loss of things that you do know. So the contiguity, the glue of what you do know, and the fear of it is lost, feeds into the ideas on the internet. It becomes, as it were, a natural mechanic. Once you had the web, the far right would follow, because it was the thing that easiest stabilized the kind of ideas the internet creates and nourishes. And as knowledge is no doubt power, for me that is an idea that matters, because it allows you to understand where you are, and perhaps in taking people back to their kith and their kin, their immediate world, give you other ways you could understand to move beyond the impasse we're otherwise entering.